168 Pokemon, 14 trainers, 2 divisions, but only 1 champion. I'm Marcus Aurelius. This is the VGC Casters Cup Draft League, Regulation F. If this is the first time you've ever seen a YouTube video of mine, or if you don't know who I am at all, I'm a Pokemon Go broadcaster. I'm also a regional winner in Pokemon Go, but I've been invited to play a VGC Draft League by other VGC casters. That means I will play a game I am not really that familiar with, especially compared to my opponents. But I'm willing to give it a go. And we are 14 trainers here who are playing this draft league. What a draft league means is that if I pick a Pokemon, any other trainer cannot pick it. And it's a randomized order going from 1 to 14, and it's a so-called snake draft. That means that the first ordered pick gets to pick first, obviously. Then it goes down to 2, 3, 4, etc., down until 14, and then starts back up with number 14, going back up to number 1. So the number 1 pick and the number 14th pick will get picks back to back, while the ordered picks in the middle, that was me, will get picks more regularly, but will not be able to pick up Pokemon back to back. And that means that the positions at the top and the bottom are better, in my opinion, because then you can target specific pairs of Pokemon that you know pair well together, while I, who was in the middle, have no certainty that my picks that I think are going to pair well with my previous pick will be available when it's my turn. And as a Pokemon Go player, coming into VGC, I realized I needed a strategy going into this. I will talk more about my strategy later in the game, but I can tell you, the most obvious picks might not be what I'm going for, because I think I will need an advantage that just simply strong Pokemon not necessarily can give me. This might sound stupid, and I'm realizing that too, but just bear with me, and I'll tell you why. This draft league also has a point system. That means, very nice. Here we go. That means every team needs to consist of an S tier, an A tier, 2 B tiers, 2 C tiers, 1 D tier, and an E tier pick, and then 4 free picks. That makes up 12 Pokemon in total for every team. The S tier picks are some of the best Pokemon available in Regulation F in VGC. If you don't know what Regulation F is, it's basically, I think it's all the Pokemon available in Scarlet and Violet, and also transferable from Pokemon Home. I'm not so sure. You should not come to me to find out what a Regulation F is. But it's no box legendaries. That means no Koraidon, no Miraidon, no Mewtwo, no Ho-Oh, Lugia, etc. No restricted Pokemon. But the S tier picks consist of Raging Bolt, Fluttermane, Incineroar, and Heatran, for example. And A tier picks are slightly lower than that. It could be utility picks like Torkoal, who's one of the only Pokemon, or at least the best available Pokemon that can set the sun up. But also damage dealers like Landorus, Therian, or Enamorus, for example. Pokemon that do huge damage, but aren't necessarily as strong as the S tier picks. For example, Enamorus would be inferior to, for example, Fluttermane. And the combination that I went with in my team was A, D, and E. That is because this draft has a budget limit of 130 points for your free picks. So the 4 Pokemon that you need to pick for your team of the free picks, there are numerous combinations that could be picked. For example, you can pick an S and an A, and then 2 E tiers with 60 plus 50 plus 10 and 10. That also makes 130. But I thought that this structure would benefit my team the most, and I'll show you why. My S tier pick is Volcarona. So Volcarona is a very flexible Pokemon, and that's what I wanted in this draft. I figured Volcarona could function as a support Pokemon, both with Rage Powder, Redirection, but it can also set up a Tailwind for its teammates, making its teammates faster. And but Volcarona can also be a damage dealer. Set up Pokemon with Quiver Dance, and Heat Wave will do lots and lots of damage. And I thought that with the flexibility of Volcarona, it will be possible to tailor it to each team. Because in VGC Draft, it's common to tailor your team to the opponent you're facing. That means you can change Terra types, movesets, EV spreads every week for every opponent. So you can tailor your team for that specific opponent. That's why we want a deep roster of 12 Pokemon, but obviously the S tier picks will probably come to more battles than the E tiers, for example. The next pick that I chose was Landorus Therian. I thought that as an A tier pick, Landorus with that base 145 attack stat is incredible. It has a very good typing as a flying and ground type Pokemon with that incredible ability Intimidate. So I thought that Landorus could be very flexible and also put on a lot of pressure for my opponents to at least adjust for it every week, and that can maybe free up, for example, Volcarona or other picks that I'm bringing. My my first B tier pick is Brute Bonnet. This thing is basically Amoonguss with a slightly worse typing, but with way better stats. And Amoonguss is an S tier Pokemon, but Brute Bonnet is a B tier. And that means that Brute Bonnet, in my opinion, was slightly more valuable to me than Amoonguss, because here I felt like I got somewhat of an S tier Pokemon, but I picked it from the B tier. So incredible attack stat, interesting speed stat as well, given that it couldn't function inside of Trick Room. And yeah, it's just a generally great Pokemon with Rage Power redirections. It gets Spore and can put opponents to sleep. So yeah, I figured Brute Bonnet would be a very beneficial asset to me. Next pick I chose was Palafin. I know I need damage dealers on my team as well, or how am I going to deal with my opponents to take them out? And Palafin is a bit of an awkward one. This is a B tier Pokemon. Even though you can tell it's insane stats, it comes with a a problem with it, because Palafin's ability 0 to Hero means it start off it's in its 0 form. It needs to be sent out on the field and swap before it gets these stats that you're actually looking at right now. And Palafin hits like a wet noodle when it's in the 0 form, but in its hero form, it's one of the best Pokemon available, in my opinion. So I figured that I maybe could use Palafin pretty well, given that I have some swapping Pokemon already, like Landorus gets U-turn, can swap out, get that Intimidate cycling going. So I thought that Palafin would be a good addition to my team. Then I picked Ambipom as my first C-tier Pokemon. This is I think this will end up as my fastest Pokemon on the team, and it gets Technician Fake Out, so the Fake Outs actually do substantial damage. It gets a lot of support moves like Knock Off, Helping Hand as well, Taunt, and I just figured Ambipom was one of the best picks from the C tier. And moving on to my next C tier is Espeon. This is also another fast Pokemon, and it does pretty good damage with that 130 special attack stat. It can set Trick Room as well, and its ability Magic Bounce is pretty cool against some specific setups. But I don't think I will be bringing Espeon most weeks. But we will see. I'm very intrigued by this Pokemon, and I thought it could provide some nice utility for my team. This is an incredible Pokemon in my opinion. This is a D tier pick, Toxicroak. It has that dry skin ability that makes Toxicroak immune to water type attacks. And it has an incredible matchup into Incineroar, Rillaboom, in a Urshifu Rapid Strike that we see a lot of in Regulation F. So, because it resists fighting, it resists grass, resists dark as well. So Toxicroak has a very unique typing, and that I figured could come in really handy. And it does pretty good damage as well with close combat and gong shot, for example. So Toxicroak, really interesting Pokemon. I hope I get to use it a lot. Then I picked Riolu as my first E tier pick. Riolu, even though the stats are obviously lackluster, but it gets Prankster. Prankster is an ability that makes status move have priority. So even though Riolu is really slow with that base 60 speed stat, it goes fast still if you press a status move. A status move is a move that, for example, can set the sun up, or Riolu gets coaching. That means coaching is a move that provides +1 to both the attack and the defense stats of its of the partner Pokemon of the teammate. So, for example, I can click coaching with Riolu next to Landorus Therian, and with that base 145 attack side of Landorus, it's going to do so much damage. So that was the thought for Riolu. I didn't feel like there was so many picks in the E tier that actually provided some value, and Riolu was definitely my favorite of them all. Then we're now moving on to my free picks. And here I picked up the A tier Pokemon, Hisuian Goodra. Hisuian Goodra has a Steel and Dragon typing, and I love that typing. I think it's really, really good. Gets so many resistances, and look at Goodra's stats. It's just a monster with incredible stats across the board. Of course, you could have min-maxed Goodra a bit more, because now it can function both as a physical and a special attacker. So it does none of them incredibly well. But that is also quite interesting in a draft, because then you can set up your Goodra to be a physical threat instead of the more common special attacking Pokemon. And that could catch some of my opponents off guard. It also has an incredibly deep move pool. It can use setup moves like Acid Armor, Life Dew, be a supportive Pokemon to its teammates. It also has incredible special defense. But you can also invest in its offenses. And I think you will see a lot of Hisuian Goodra if you follow my videos here. My next pick ended up being Mimikyu. I did not have a Ghost type yet, and Mimikyu has a built-in Focus Sash. That means Focus Sash is an item that prevents you from getting one-hit knocked out, and Disguise, Mimikyu's only ability, it nullifies the incoming attack, and you take 1/8 of your HP's damage instead. But that only works once, so if my opponents hit Mimikyu 2 times, then it will take regular damage on the second hit. But Mimikyu also gets some cool supporting moves like Will-O-Wisp, Taunt, Trick Room, gets Sword Stand so we can set up. It has a very good typing with that Fairy and Ghost. That means you can hit most of the meta for at least neutral damage. One of the most common Pokemon right now is Fluttermane, obviously also a Fairy and Ghost typing, and you see just how great that typing is on Fluttermane. This is not exactly Fluttermane, but I'm going to try to use it as well as I can. My second to last pick is Oricorio Pom-Pom. Now you can see the D tier picks are getting less and less valuable, but I figured a flying type next to Landorus could be very, very good, because Landorus can then click Earthquakes next to Oricorio. Oricorio also has the ability Dancer. That means any other dancing moves that is used on the field, Oricorio will copy. So for example, if I set up a Quiver Dance with Volcarona, Oricorio will copy the boosts that Volcarona is getting. So you can basically get 2 Pokemon set up for 1. And Oricorio also gets some nice moves like Tailwind, which can make my other Pokemon faster. And I didn't have an electric typing yet, so I figured Oricorio was pretty good value from the D tier. And then my final E tier is Ice Q. Ice Q is a little bit weird because of its ability Ice Phase. If it takes a physical attack, the attack is nullified. Ice Cube becomes incredibly fast and hits somewhat harder. And I didn't have an Ice type yet. I figured I could use an Ice type attacker next to Landorus or Oricorio. So that was basically the sentiment behind Ice Q. And I think Ice Q was probably the most valuable pick left in the E tier. So here you see my entire team. Let's see. Yeah, you see the Ice Q, you see the Oricorio, and what really went down as we were picking was that I was number 7 or 8 in line to pick. That meant I knew that I could list up 7 Pokemon that I wanted, and if then I knew I would get at least one of those on that list. And I looked through the Pokemon. I looked through the S tier. There were only 3 Pokemon that I even considered from the S tier in my position. And that was Iron Hands, it was Raging Bolt, and it was Flutter Mane. Those are so unique and so incredible and can be applied in so many ways that I think those Pokemon, they could be valuable to pick in round 1. But I'm a Pokemon Go player. I'm not a VGC player. I'm sure that they know a lot more about those Pokemon than I do. So I started looking through the rest of the tiers because I realized that I need to get as much value out of all of my picks as possible if my team as a whole would end up better than my opponents. Because I know I will need a team advantage going into every matchup to have even remotely a chance to win. So I figured that basically all of the S tier Pokemon are valuable. So I started looking at the A tiers and the B tiers and I had not some C tiers as well. And I asked myself, are there any picks here that are more valuable or easier to pick up than the other picks? And I find Brute Bonnet in the B tier. So Brute Bonnet was my round 1 pick. And then my second round pick was Landorus. Because I thought that Landorus was the most valuable A tier Pokemon. And I thought Brute Bonnet was the most valuable B tier Pokemon. And while the others are fighting for their S tier picks, then I can scoop up the best picks of the lower tiers and rounding out my team and making it as strong generally as possible. Even though, yes, I missed out on Raging Bolt and Flutter Mane, but maybe I can find a way around it and make my team stronger than the team with Flutter Mane or Urshifu end up being in the end. My round 3 pick was supposed to be Latios, and that could have, I think that would have synchronized really, really well with Landorus, given how Latios has Levitate, so it's immune to that Earthquake spam from Landorus, but it was sniped just before it was my turn, and I picked up Goodra instead, and that also inflicted how I picked my S tier, because I knew I wanted either Heatran or Volcarona from the S tier. As I didn't get Latios, I wanted Volcarona over Heatran. Volcarona is faster, it also gets Tailwind, and I get the Steel typing in Goodra, which means I don't need Heatran as much. And that was the strategy for my first 4 or 5 picks, and I think my strategy was really good. I'm very happy with how my team ended up, and I will be uploading every week from now on. All my battles will be played during January, February, March. I'm not exactly sure, but I will be uploading every week from now on. So this Saturday, this is the 17th. 1 week from now, you will see my week 1 game against Zoe Liu. And she has an Urshifu, and I have Landorus Volcarona as my 2 most valuable pick, and also Gudra. And all of those 3 take super effective from Urshifu Rapid Strike. So it will be very interesting to see. I hope you will watch and pay attention to how this draft goes. It's very interesting. I'm very new to this, but I've played some Pokemon Go draft before. I played some VGC, not a lot, but I have a goal of number 1. There is another Pokemon Go caster in the tournament as well. His name is Tomahawk UK, and my primary goal for this tournament is to beat him because we're in the same division. I didn't mention that actually. The 14 players are divided by 2 divisions, so I'm only facing 6 of them, and there will be playoffs. The top 4 teams in each division makes it to the playoffs, and if I can beat Tomahawk and 2 more, I might be within reach to advance. So I won't say it's a goal, but I have an ambition that I will make the playoffs. And if I do, I'll be over the moon. I will be over the moon if I just get a win. But I've played some VGC. I'm really curious how this will end up, but I will give it my best. And I'm very open to advice. If anyone has any recommendations or any thoughts about how I should run my team, please DM me, because truly I'm lost in thought for most of this. But I have a friend, a Norwegian, his name is Steinar, and he is helping me a little bit with the strategy and EV spreads and stuff. I have absolutely no experience with that, so I do believe that we can make something work, and it'd be really nice if you were able to follow this. And I've been blabbering for long enough already, but thank you for watching, and I'll see you next week.